Good morning, everybody. We're just going to take a minute or two to wait to get started today, but we just wanted to let you know that we're running a minute or so behind, and we'll call things to order in just a moment. If you would please go ahead and mute yourself. If you're not speaking, that would be terrific, just so we can make sure that we have good audio for the meeting. Thank you.
Good morning.
Okay. Hi, Mark. Good morning. Okay. All right. At 10:03, we're going to call the meeting to order and begin recording. Okay, at 10:03, we have called to order the Tuesday, March 9th meeting of the Board of Commissioners. At this time, we are going to please welcome you in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would please rise if you're able and join with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all.
Okay. At this time, we will welcome any public comment for items that do not appear on our agenda. If there's anybody who would like to make public comment for items that do not appear on our agenda, please feel free to mute yourself and you can offer public comment at this time. Okay, seeing no public comment for items not on the agenda, we will accept public comment for items as they appear on the agenda. We will move to our meeting minutes from our last meeting, February 17th work session, and our last meeting, which was the March 2nd Board of Commissioners meeting. Is there a motion to approve those two set of minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes from the February 17th work session and the March 2nd Board of Commissioners meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes do so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. For proclamations, we're going to go to proclamation number 3 of 2021. And we're going to be welcoming in some great and exciting people who are a part of our 4-H program here in Center County. We have Jess Flugfelder, who is the 4-H Extension Educator. We also have Maureen Casey, the Client Relationship Manager for Penn State Extension, Area 5, and it's quite a number of counties. It includes our county, but also neighboring counties of Clinton, Union, Snyder, Northumberland, Montour, and Columbia. So we welcome both Jess and Maureen. Our 4-H volunteer leaders, we have Bill Jester, who is the club leader of Center County 4-H Robotics. We also have Patty Mock, club leader, and we have some 4-H members themselves, and we appreciate them being here. Very special to have them today. We have Tate Geiger, 11th grade, with the FRC team, and he's the team president. We also have Max Henning, 5th grader, who's part of Coder Zero. We also have Jordan Anderson, who's in 12th grade, and they are part of the Center County 4-H team Teen Council. So we're so excited to have everybody here today for the proclamation. We'll turn it over to Jess for some opening remarks, and also Maureen as well. So please take it away.
Okay, sorry, I'll go ahead and go first. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to the commissioners and to everybody here for your continued support throughout this last year. I know this has been a crazy year for everybody, and I want to say thank you for continuing to stand by us and support us in our programs, not only just with 4-H, but with Extension in general. I have to say that Jess and Mary Beth and the team at 4-H has done an amazing job given what they were given and having to make the transitions that they have. So I want to thank them as well. And I also want to say a special thank you to Patty Mock, which Jess will talk a little more about that. But yes, I just, thank you guys for all your support, and we continue to look for ways to be more value to the county, and we're always open for suggestions. So if there are things that you'd like to see us doing, don't ever hesitate to give us a yell and just let us know. And with that, I will turn it over to Jess.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So as Maureen mentioned, our 4-H program has definitely looked different in this last year. And while COVID has disrupted in-person learning activities, we've still been able to provide some high quality, positive youth development experiences to our members. For me, it's been a fun challenge trying to adapt existing programs into a virtual format. Last year has really given us the opportunity to play around with technology to create new programs that can be offered remotely. Beginning last year and continuing into this year, Center County Youth were engaged remotely in a variety of ways. We've had many clubs holding regular meetings to kind of continue that learning throughout the year. Last year, we were able to transition our traditional residential camp into a virtual experience. We mailed out Camp in a Box to all the participants. Statewide, there were many trainings, webinars, conferences, and miniature club experiences offered to the kids remotely. We also were able to partner in with some other states and offer some of their programming to our kids. So there's a humongous collaboration throughout the year. On the flip side of that, we also recognize that virtual engagement is not possible for all families. So we've been offering at-home project kits as part of our 4-H Unplugged program. The goal of that is to allow the kids to participate without needing an internet or a computer. So far in 2021, we've still been mostly remote, but we have had 16 clubs that have met the requirements and gotten approval to meet in person. So that is really exciting. It's exciting from our standpoint in the office, but it's also really exciting for the kids and the clubs who've been able to see each other and get back to that in-person learning. So in accordance with the approved safety guidelines, these clubs have been engaging youth in a variety of ways, from hands-on project skill-a-thons to presentations, talks with guest speakers, and some clubs have even explored some new projects. I want to send out a heartfelt thank you to our community. They've been instrumental in providing large meeting spaces that allow our clubs, especially some of our larger clubs, to meet those social distancing requirements. As we look ahead, we know, some of the families that are engaged in our animal science program are kind of wondering what they can expect for the rest of the year. The Penn State Extension, 4-H Animal Science Program engages scientists, educators, staff, and volunteers in the development and teaching of science-based information and project support of 4-H youth involved in these animal projects. They're designed to teach youth agricultural best practices like animal husbandry, record keeping, and marketing, as well as some positive youth development traits like leadership, responsibility, and compassion. So last year, most animal shows and livestock sales, as we know, were canceled due to COVID mitigation requirements. Center County was very fortunate in that our local sale barn coordinated an alternative sale opportunity for the youth in Center County. In addition, most of our youth also took advantage of 4-H educational programs to help them direct market their animals to consumers in the county. Looking ahead, when it's permitted, our 4-H program will once again be partnering with the local fair board, FFA chapters, volunteers, and others to conduct animal shows and a market livestock sale. We're looking forward to the community connections as we all gather again to celebrate and support our 4-H members, not only at the animal shows and sales, but in the other many ways that we celebrate and recognize the achievements of these youth in our community. So I just want to say I really appreciate the continued support of our leaders who've demonstrated their willingness to adapt to these ever-changing circumstances. And I appreciate the positive attitude of our members who have displayed definitely resiliency throughout all of this. So thank you also to the commissioners for your continued support and for our community members who are continuing to support our kids in any way possible. So that was just a little bit of some of the great things that our county is working on, both past, currently, and some of the things we have to look forward to. In addition to that, I would like to take the time to recognize Patty Mock. I didn't know if I saw her on here, but for those who may not know, Patty is a longtime 4-H volunteer and most recently a retired member of our extension staff. She has provided years of valuable support to our 4-H program and to our office. And she will continue to provide leadership to two of our longstanding 4-H clubs in Center County. That would be the Gold Bullets 4-H Club and the Center County Cluckers and Quackers. Her past contributions include serving as a nutrition education advisor with Penn State Nutrition Links program for more than 12 years. She has served as the 4-H program assistant to the Center County office. She has served as a 4-H leader for many, many years. She has also served as the Extension's liaison with the Grange Fair Committee, and she's also been a member of the Center County Junior Livestock Committee. She has been the coordinator and organizer of many years of 4-H roundups, Grange Fair Children's Day, and countless other events. She served on our extension board, to include serving as president. She has been an invaluable member of the office staff and to the community in all of her volunteer efforts. We look forward to her continued involvement as a volunteer, and she exemplifies the very best of 4-H leaders. So I don't know if Patty was on here, but I just want to send out a heartfelt thank you to her for her contributions to the 4-H program. So now I'm going to turn it back over to the commissioners. I don't know if they have anything they would like to say before we let some of our members speak about their 4-H experiences.
No, it'd be. Thank you, Jess, for that. And yes, Patty is on, and we're grateful to have her supporting the programs. Absolutely. We wanted to, yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear from some of the students themselves, please.
I'll go ahead and start. I'm Jordan Anderson, and I would like to say thank you to the commissioners and our 4-H staff in general for making all these things happen for us. I know with the COVID shutdowns and everything last year, 4-H was something that I really, really missed as a member, and definitely something I'm looking forward to getting back into this year. But I like to thank our staff, Jess, Mary Beth, all the leaders for their support and for their tireless efforts in figuring out ways for us to be able to do things. So in the coming year, I'm really looking forward to getting back to that. And I want to thank the community and the commissioners for their continued support of the program. 4-H is really something that has had a huge impact on my life and continues to impact many other youth in the county.
Thank you, Jordan. We also have Tate and Max. Tate, would you like to say a few words? Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to, similarly to Jordan, thank everybody who has made this year possible, even when it's been really difficult, especially Jess and Mary Beth. You guys have both helped us a lot with transitioning our robotics team into being more in person and being able to engage in the hands-on activities that we aspire to bring to students in a healthy way, a safe way. And also to our mentors, Ms. Jester, and all the other mentors who have stuck with the team and really helped us through a very difficult time. And thank you to the commissioners for your continued support, even when these are crazy times, but we're making it through.
Thank you very much, Tate. And Max, we'd love to hear from you and what's happening with Coder Zero and their team.
I've had a very fun experience with Coder Z, and I am very grateful that Mr. Jester has set up Zoom meetings weekly for us. I've had a lot of fun experiences with it, with the group activities over Zoom, and I'd like to thank the community for continued support.
Thank you very much, Max. Thank you. It's great to hear from the folks in our community who are utilizing hands-on the programs of 4-H and especially the robotics team. So it's great to have you all here today. And yes, Mary Beth, I apologize for not introducing you at the outset. Thank you for all the work that you do to support the programs and to make it happen here in our Center County community and beyond. So please, no, go ahead, Mary Beth. Yeah, please.
I'm sorry. I had a very exciting moment last night with the robotics Coder Z members. And I don't know, Bill Jester is here, who is their leader and mentor, but they are ranked number 1 and number 2 in a regional competition. And they were all excited. I'm really excited. So I'm always looking for the silver linings in this year. And Coder Z is really on fire and firing them. So big congratulations to them. And again, another robotics team, which I just glanced at their email, they're also finding success. So they're out there doing their 4-H work. Thank you.
Well, to be excellent and to achieve those kind of rankings, it's in such a even more difficult environment. To achieve that is really special, and so the perseverance is something to certainly celebrate. So congratulations on that. That's great. That's great. But thank you again. Thank you all for attending today. We have the proclamation before us, but if there's any other questions or comments from my colleagues, we'll certainly have Commissioner Higgins or Commissioner Dershowitz make some remarks as well.
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner Pipe. Recovered from whatever computer problem I was having, and I'm back online. Always enjoy working with the 4-H leaders and the youth participating. I've attended several of the practices of the Center County 4-H Robotics Club, and Bill Jester and his assistants and all of the young people participating do wonderful work. I remember, I think it was the very first year they participated. They won the international competition. So that was so wonderful to see. And of course, I look forward to things returning to normal and being able to purchase various livestock at the Center County Grange Fair. I'll hand it over to Steve now.
Well, I think we're all looking forward to the Grange Fair this year. It's not the same without having that week of festivities for 4-H, and certainly Patty Mock and Mary Beth and Maureen and all the other folks that make it happen. You know, there's just so many kids that are impacted by this and have such a great opportunity, not only through the livestock end of things, but also as the robotics and other things grow. We are fortunate in Center County to have such a strong 4-H program, and I think it's very fortunate that we have that support, and I think it's also very telling that the community backs everything that the 4-H does, particularly at the Grange Fair. But thank you very much for all your help and making it happen. And to the young folks that are involved in the programs, keep recruiting new members and keep being good examples of what the best of youth is for Center County.
Thank you, Commissioner. So with that, we have the proclamation, and this is going to be celebrating, recognizing, and proclaiming the week of March 14th through the 21st as Pennsylvania 4-H Week. And we would be interested and accept a motion to that effect at this time.
I will make an enthusiastic motion to support the proclamation recognizing Center County 4-H and all of the wonderful things they do in the county.
I will second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the proclamation? Hearing none and seeing none, all in favor of adopting Proclamation 3, do so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Okay. Well, again, thank you to everybody who's joined us today. Keep up the great work. We look forward to seeing you again very soon, and have a great day, okay? Thanks, everybody. Okay, so we are now going to move into our COVID-19 planning and response portion of our agenda, and we will turn it over to our Administrator, Margaret Gray, for a consideration of full work remote status. Good morning, Margaret.
Good morning, everyone. As you are aware, Center County government offices are working under a full remote work status structure through this Friday, March the 12th. And across the county, we are seeing a leveling off of COVID-19 hospitalizations, as well as declining positivity rates. Within our own county government workforce, we are also seeing our numbers dropping. We have a very small number of employees impacted by COVID-19 with very single-digit numbers right now, and only 4 people on quarantine. So what we're seeing across the community is also being mirrored here across our own workforce. So given that it will take a few more weeks to make sure that this trend is continuing, we are recommending for the board's consideration that we extend our full remote work status through Friday, April the 2nd, and then consider returning to a rotation schedule on Monday, April 5th. We could come back on Tuesday, March the 30th, that last week of March, just to make sure that it looks as if we have stabilized here. And perhaps we will also have some indication from the governor's office at that time about telework. He has not changed the guidance on telework should continue wherever possible. We may see that here in a few weeks. So the recommendation for consideration this morning is to extend full remote work status through Friday, the 2nd of April.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. I think that was well laid out, well reasoned, and it certainly is consistent with a lot of the trends that we're seeing. So is there any feedback on that or further discussion on the extension of the full work remote status?
No.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, we'd look for a motion then to approve that.
Motion to approve the extension of the full remote work status through Friday, April 2nd.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, comments on that? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
The motion has carried. Okay, thank you, Margaret. Moving into our next item, we have a presentation from the CETA Council of Governments for the Hospitality Industry Recovery Program, also known as CHIRP. And we do have with us Mike Fisher and Harry Matthias from CETA-COG. I'm seeing them on here as well. And we would love to first turn it to Commissioner Higgins, who serves as Center County Government's Commissioner Representative, as well as Lisa Strickland, who is a supervisor in Ferguson Township. But we'll turn it over to Mark, who works a bit closer with Mike and Harry with CETA-COG and on this program. So, Mark.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, Center County Government has a very strong relationship with CETA-COG that goes back multiple decades. They are our local development district, and they are an accredited economic development corporation. So we need to work with them, and we're happy to work with them for the CHIRP program, which is just over $1.8 million of funding for any business that is a hotel, a motel, a B&B, et cetera, or any business that's a restaurant, bar, food truck, catering company, et cetera. The commissioners would like to get this money out into the community as soon as possible, and CETA-COG is working hard to ensure that we can do that. The program is set up to try to incentivize the smaller of our businesses in these fields. So hopefully pretty much everybody who applies can at least get some money in a grant. So I think at this point, I will turn it over to Mike Fisher, trying to remember if you're the assistant or deputy director of CETA-COG, Mike, and Harry Matthias, who they have hired to run the CHIRP program. Thank you for being here, gentlemen.
Thank you, Commissioner Higgins, and good morning to the rest of the commissioners. We are very pleased to be able to provide you with this level of assistance. As you probably are aware, we were called to motivate ourselves very quickly about 3 weeks ago because we had 10 of our 11 counties wanting us to be part of delivering this. And so we're looking forward and assisting Center County and getting this money out in the street. Just real quickly, I wanted to just describe our team here. We've assembled a team of 3 additional veteran senior staff people here at CETA-COG. They were intimately involved in getting the CRBG funds out under the streets last year when everybody was tasked to do that in a quick period of time. And we also this time felt that it was appropriate to hire an outside contractor, which is Harry Matthias. Harry comes to us as also having a great deal of experience. He was ultimately the guy that got all the CRBG funds out in Columbia County. And he also has a pretty stellar track record of employment. He was a school superintendent for 19 years over in our area. And so he has a great deal of expertise. And in a short period of time, over the last 3 weeks, we've worked as a team with Harry in putting together standard guidelines that are relevant for all 10 counties. We don't have any flavor of the month for each county. So each county is basically operating under the same process that we put together. And we're also have a relationship that with the Community Giving Foundation, which is a nonprofit foundation that's intimately involved with getting monies out in the street. And Harry is going to explain that a little bit more in detail. So I'm just going to now turn this over to Harry. Hopefully his connectivity is going to be appropriate today, because we have all been experiencing that, unfortunately, throughout this whole work remotely process. But Harry, let's see how your connectivity is today.
Very well. Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone, and thank you. I did send a PowerPoint into Natalie, and she's going to drive that from her end. So I'll talk a little bit while she gets that fired up. Good to work with CEDACOG. Mike and his team have been superb to work with and helping us work through what the legislation actually says. And as you heard Mike say, my background as a school superintendent, I'm very familiar with working with the General Assembly and legislation that comes through them. Also, way in the past, I was a math teacher, and that kind of helps too in trying to simplify and clarify this process. So the way I go at this bill, and of course the acronym is CHIRP, it's this hospitality money that has come out of Act 1. And if Natalie, you could go to the second slide there, please. Act 1 of 2001 provides COVID-related relief grants. There are a number of them in Act 1. The one in particular that we're referring to is CHIRP, and it deals with providing appropriations to eligible accommodation and food service sectors in the economy. The appropriation, of course, came out to the counties based on your population, and then you were required to use a CEDO, a Certified Economic Development Organization. Center County is not alone. There are 10 of the counties that have chosen to go through CEDACOG. So next slide, please. The way I kind of look at this is I want to make this process as simple as possible for the business owner. The last thing they need at this point is a complicated, tedious, time-consuming process. So when I've worked with Mike and his team, we've been looking at the legislation and trying to compartmentalize it into how does one apply and become eligible, and we keep that as simple as possible in a grant application. Then how does one become priority, because there is that component of the legislation, and I'll come back to that. And then there's also, once you're eligible and priority, how do we determine what your grant is and how do we get that out? And as you heard Commissioner Higgins say, how do we do that as efficiently and quickly as possible to aid our local businesses? So under the legislation, I'm sorry, back up one slide. The application opens next Monday, March 15th. Now, it says in the legislation that it is a rolling application process. So essentially what that means is first come, first served, as long as you're eligible until the money is gone. I will come back to that. The applications need to close by June 15th or earlier if the money is all allocated. Grants are required to be in $5,000 increments with no grant larger than $50,000. A grant may not be awarded to pay for the same eligible expenses that a grantee paid for in a previous COVID-related grant, be it PPP or perhaps a DCED grant, or even perhaps a county grant that they received before. Okay, you can move to the next slide, please. There are some things that make a business eligible. Now, the county and many organizations throughout the region, including Chambers of Commerce, Visitors Bureau, small business development corporations, the press, and so forth, received a lot of this information yesterday from the CEDACOG office. So I urge you to refer to that. This, of course, is just kind of an overview. But the main things are this: you have to have 300 or fewer full-time equivalent employees. You have to have 15 million or less in tangible net worth. There's some other things like you cannot owe federal and state taxes. You have to intend to be in business going forward for another year at least, and so forth. But the main eligibility requirement is that you have to show a 25% reduction in gross receipts. Now, that's fairly broad. And when you start to ask yourself the question, well, how do you calculate that? And in the legislation, there are many ways to calculate that. And it became quite apparent that the General Assembly wants business to qualify. This is one of these bills where they're providing the money and they're given many, many ways to measure that 25% reduction in gross receipts. It can be 2020 versus 2019. It can be first quarter 2020 versus first quarter 2019. If you weren't in business in 2019, there's ways to calculate it. And essentially in the legislation, there's 6 different ways with a number of iterations under each of those 6. So again, to make it simple for the business who's applying, in the grant application, what we are going to do is simply list those 6 areas that are in the legislation and then basically say, look, business, you pick which one that you fall under. It could be more than one, by the way, but you pick. It doesn't matter to us. But then once you select the methodology under which you qualify, then there will be a box that says, what is your baseline gross receipts? And provide a document that supports that. And then what is your comparable gross receipts? And a document that supports that. And if the second number is 25% or less than the first number, that's the main qualifying criteria. Okay, next slide, please. There's also this concept in the legislation called priority. And of course, we know what priority means. It means essentially you move to the top of a list or further up a list. Now, what's interesting is that kind of contradicts this concept of a rolling process. If you're rolling and processing them as they come in, the idea of going to the top of that list doesn't make much sense. But we're addressing that a certain way, which I'll come back to. But in order to be priority, you have to have either not received previous COVID relief and been part of the governor's closure proclamations, or, and this is a big or, you can demonstrate a reduction in revenue of at least 50%. So go back to that revenue reduction. If it's 50% or greater, that's how you can become priority. Well, now, if you're priority, how does that work in a rolling application process? So if you would go to the next slide, please. What we have decided to do is have application windows. And we think this is a benefit for a number of ways. So for example, and by the way, there's 4 different windows I have on this slideshow, simply the first one as an example. But the first window for applications opens next Monday, March 15th, and it is a 2-week window. So on March 28th, that window, at that point, what we would do is grab all the applications that have occurred in that 2-week window. We would set them aside, and then the team at CEDACOG, with me involved, will go through that, and we will determine who is eligible and then who is priority. And of course, if you're priority, you would move up the list. Now, that largely doesn't matter as long as there is money still available, because once you qualify, and it comes on a rolling basis. But where priority will really start to matter is when the county is getting close to your money being expended, then being at the top of the list will matter. But we will do that in the first window is a 2-week window. Then we will have a 3-week window. Then we will have a 4-week window. And then if there's any money left, we will continue that till June 15th in the 4th window. So priority status within each window will, of course, move applicants to the top of that list, and that is how the distribution will occur. We believe that that process will benefit, all businesses because it'll give them a little time, but particularly those businesses like moms and pop businesses that don't have a staff that will have this financial data directly at their fingertips on March 15th. So we think by providing that window, that will help groups like that. Now, here's what the windows look like. The window will be open in this case for 2 weeks. And then once that window closes, and in this case, March 29th, the CEDACOG team will review the applications, will verify the data that has been submitted, will make sure that if they need to be approved, that they've met those criteria. And then we will create a draft list of grantees, who they are, what their grant would be. At that time, we will send that list to you. Now that will to the county commissioners. Now at that point, that is a private list. It is not approved yet. And what we want to do is provide another level of eligibility review. So when you receive that list, what we were asking of you is to look at it and say, hey, you know Center County far better than Harry does and Mike does, because I live in Columbia County. We want you to look at that list. And if a county, a business says, hey, we're a restaurant, and you look at it and go, no, they're not, they're a gas station, for instance, you can then get back to us with concerns on eligibility. We can then follow up and make sure they meet the criteria. Once that occurs on Monday, April 12th, letters will then, and actually be emails, will go out to the approved grantees. They will get an email that will say, congratulations, you have received, you've been approved for such and such a grant. And then we'll include language that will be the contract that they will then enter into with CEDACOG to receive their money. So if you look at that timeline, and you heard Mr. Higgins talk about getting money out as quickly as possible, that is April 12th. When they get that email, we're talking in 5 weeks from now. So money could be out as soon as that date. The next slide, please, has the dates of the other windows. So you see there's then a 3-week, a 4-week, and then a final window. The windows could close if the county funds are fully expended. The next slide then talks about, okay, you are eligible, you may or may not be priority. How then do we determine what your grant is? Now, we've discussed this quite a bit. We've heard input from the county commissioners, including Commissioner Higgins, at a meeting. And actually, Commissioner Higgins and I have talked several times. He's been very helpful in providing data to me on Center County. But this is how we're doing this. Under the legislation, you are to fund eligible operating expenses. Those operating expenses are to include payroll, mortgage, rent, lease, and utilities. They are to begin on March 1 of 2020, so just over a year ago, and you are eligible to submit up to the date that you provide the application. So it'll be just a little over a year's time. We internally have defined utilities pretty broadly, not only your electric and your heat, it could be heating oil or natural gas or whatever that is, but it also can include water, sewage. It also can include your Wi-Fi, cable, things like that. So picture those 3 operating expenses, payroll, mortgage, rent, lease, and utilities added up. Then you have to subtract out any COVID-related relief for which you paid for the same expenses. So if you got PPP and you used it to pay for some of that payroll, obviously you have to subtract that out so as to not double dip. That calculation, and you see it there at the bottom, payroll plus mortgage, rent, lease plus utilities minus the other relief, and that's a minus sign there. I know it doesn't show up very big. That becomes your grant basis amount. We then take that amount and we bracket it together, and that bracket is shown on the next slide. So picture that amount, that calculation, and that is the left-hand column. And in listening to the commissioner's feedback at the board meeting for CEDACOG, what we heard them say very clearly is, and you heard Commissioner Higgins say this earlier, they would prefer to give out more lesser amount grants rather than a few higher amount grants. So you'll notice as you look at those brackets, it's bracketed very much to the lower end. So you see if your grant basis amount is $5,000 to $40,000, you go to the right-hand column, you get a $5,000 grant. If your grant basis amount is $40,000 to $80,000, you get a $10,000 grant. And so on. You will notice it's 80 to 120, 120 to 160, and then it begins to go up pretty dramatically. 160 to 400,000 is a $25,000 grant. 400 to 800,000 is a $30,000 grant, and we expand it very rapidly, trying to attain that vision of the commissioners to try to push more people into those lower bracket levels. Then the final slide, we will, the grant application will be open on March 15th. It is being created right now. It's very close to being ready. The application is at www.csgiving.org. You may on your county website, or really, the chamber, Visitors Bureau in Center County, however you want to do that, you may link that website to your own to drive your residents and business owners to that website. That's how we've determined how to proceed. We are very close to ready, and look forward to any questions you may have.
Harry, could you give a little more insight as to the Carry Giving Foundation, their role in this process?
Yes, so csgiving.org is the website for the Community Giving Foundation. Now, here's the background. Keep in mind, in Columbia County last summer, I was tasked with providing recommendations to the Columbia County commissioners on how to expend their block grant. This included for them a huge push to get relief out to small business and tourism related businesses. In the end, they gave out nearly half of their grant in that regard. And in Columbia County, that was about $2.6 to $2.7 million. So at the time, I was brainstorming, how do you effectively and efficiently process literally hundreds of applications from many businesses, many backgrounds? How do you gain the data you need that included not only things they could answer, but also documents that they needed to submit, things like tax returns, profit loss statements, that type of thing. And it dawned upon me that there was an organization here regionally, which serves 5 or 6 counties actually, that is the Community Giving Foundation. That foundation has software that up until last summer was always used for nonprofits, that if they were at the time giving out disaster relief funds because of COVID. So organizations could apply, provide their information, including financial information. And then there was a group of people that go in and look at those applications and determine eligibility. Well, again, coming from a school background, I was familiar with different types of software and how they could handle certain programs. This was exactly the software we needed. They simply needed to say yes, that they were willing to transition over and help for-profit businesses, and in this case, of course, the county commissioners. When we reached out to them, they were more than happy because they recognized the need in this community to help businesses through COVID. So they opened up and met with me, and we talked about application process and how this would drive itself out. And it just worked incredibly smoothly. gathered lots of information, processed it quickly, and got the money in the hands of the businesses. They were a godsend, could not do it without them. So when CEDACOG reached out to me for this process, really the foundation and their software kind of needed to be a partner as well.
So we really appreciate this partnership that we've developed with Harry and our small team of staff here. We feel very confident that we're poised and ready to go by the March 15th deadline. We will continue to keep you apprised as our progress moves forward. As Harry indicated on his PowerPoint, we want you folks to be intimately involved at the back end because we recognize that the computer, as well as us putting our human eyes on every application, we won't know the history of a lot of these businesses. And although we're asking them to self-certify in terms of who they are and that they're still in business and they're a viable business, we don't have that insight as you do in your local level as to that business shuttered and it's never opened again. So we don't want to have a situation where we're giving funds out to obviously an ineligible business or a business that is not going to come back again. That's why we wanted to have you folks look at that list. If there's a better way of doing that, we're open for that in terms of how we can do that due diligence at the local level. But that's kind of our outline, what we have going right now and how we're building this system. And thank you for the opportunity for letting us take this time to roll this out in front of you so that you can have a better understanding of what we're trying to do here.
No, absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen. One thing, if we could touch on briefly, although the program is self-exclamatory in terms of the title of the hospitality industry, if you could touch on the requirement for the NAICS code that a business would have, I think that's a critical part of applying for that. If you could, maybe.
Harry, you want to handle that?
Sure. So under the legislation, it's very clear. They have to be a NICS, NAICS 721 or 722. And that, of course, is accommodation industry or food service. Just in case there's some confusion, how we're addressing that is we are putting a link directly on the application to the NAICS website. So if you're sitting there going, boy, I don't know, you can click on that and go in, and it provides a very clear definition on who qualifies.
Fantastic.
And so that may be somewhat of a controversial conversation that we might have because we've already had a number of inquiries, like for instance, a winery who had an NICS code of a manufacturer, not in the hospitality. And so that is clear to us that we're not going to make judgment calls and value. And you know, unfortunately, they don't have the proper code. So we are going to go with the strict interpretation of the legislation in order to try to treat everybody as fairly as possible and not get ourselves in a
based on that. But again, that was just a suggestion, or even the Department of Revenue, if they would have from filings with NAIC code filings in some way, shape, or form. And I guess it's just to be proactive to get it to certain businesses, because we did our business program and we had many businesses afterwards say, well, I'd never heard about it. And again, just because they're heads down working on keeping their business open and running and getting customers in due to the pandemic, and they may not have had the opportunity to see press coverage, et cetera, due to that. And so just being, looking at it and being proactive. But we've got a lot of great chambers and economic development groups and business groups here that I think are going to be very interested in getting the word out about this. So just food for thought there.
We will certainly follow up on those channels to see if we can access that information. And if so, we'll figure out a way that we can blast that out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
The winery example, I think, brings up another question. How would a brew pub be classified? Hopefully most of the revenue comes from directly serving the public on premises. Do we have any guidance from DCED on a group like that?
I smile because we're not getting a whole lot of guidance from DCED when we ask questions. But again, we get back to that very elementary piece that is whatever their code is. If the NAICS code is in that 721 or 722 bracket, then we have an eligible applicant that we can consider. If they're not, then I don't know how we can, in good conscience, without getting ourselves into trouble here, to make exceptions like that. And so I don't know, Commissioner Higgins, as to what the brew pub's numbers will be. I was surprised as to seeing a winery having a manufacturer code. I guess it makes sense when you think about it. But I can't say what it's going to all look like when we start to see this barrage of applications that come in and how they classify themselves. Then, just so that everybody knows, everybody that has a federal tax return, they do have, I've been told by our auditor at CEDACOG, they do have an NAICS code, because I wanted to make sure, does everybody have one? And if they're filing a federal tax return, there is a place on that return where they have to identify the code of the type of business that they're involved in.
Okay. Any other questions for our presenters from CEDA Council of Governments, Mr. Fisher or Mr. Matthias?
I'm good.
Okay. And again, the website csgiving.org/chirp is where folks can go to receive, it's, again, the same presentation or same information you had, Mr. Matthias, is laid out on that website, really nicely done on the community foundation site there, really nicely done. And so we will know next Monday. It'll be a hop-in site, very busy. So thank you for all the preparation on this. Thank you for the work on this. We're pleased to be able to work with you on this and have businesses apply for this, and look forward to cutting or having those checks go out in short order. But again, thank you for your time today.
And thank you, commissioners. And if at any point in time you have any concerns or questions, Commissioner Higgins has my cell number, so feel free to use it. And I usually pick up all times of the day except after 10. That's my bedtime, so I usually turn it off then. So with that said, thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Mike and Harry.
All right, take care. I'm gonna leave now because I have to go to another meeting.
Thank you.
Have a great day, folks.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you once again to our partners at CEDA Council of Governments. We're going to move then into our contracts, and we're going to turn it over to our controller, Jason Moser, for this first letter of engagement.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having me today. And this is just the letter of engagement for Baker Tilly for our audit year 2020. The contract total is $78,000 for the period January 1, 2021 through the end of this year. And that is just shy of 2% higher than the 2019 total. So that was 76.5. This is 78,000. But again, it's just a letter of engagement for them to perform the 2020 audit.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moser. Any questions on that? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion?
Sure, let me unmute myself. So I will make the motion to approve the letter of engagement with Baker Tilly Virchow Kraus LLP to next week's consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve, or I should say to move to next week's consent agenda. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moser.
Thank you.
We're going to go into our next item for our emergency communications office, and we will turn it over to Norm for this item. Good morning, Norm.
Good morning. This request is for a hardware and software maintenance agreement with Compros out of Altoona for our Vesta 911 phone system we share with the Southern Alleghenies Cooperative. This agreement covers our workstations and our shared system that we share with them. The 1-year warranty period for a system refresh is over, so this agreement covers years 2 through 5. The 2021 cost is $78,635.12, with annual increases for the following years, with the agreement total for 5 years at $328,980.01. This year is completely funded by a 2021 FEMA regional grant. That grant helps reduce the overall expenses out of county funds.
Okay, thank you, Norm. Any questions on this item? Comments? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to add the agreement with Compros Inc. to next week's consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Okay, thank you very much, Norm. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we have our consent agenda for this week in front of us. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve this week's consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. For our ABCs, we have a term adjustment for Andrea Pandolfi. We had taken action last week to approve her appointment, but we're just adjusting her term to end at the end of 2024 to line up with the other members of the Planning Commission. And then we also are looking for an appointment for Mary Hart on the Aging Advisory Council from the beginning of March of this year until the end of February in 2024. Would there be a motion to approve? I'm sorry, Commissioner, I think you might be on mute. Sorry.
Sorry, did it backwards there.
No worries.
Motion to approve the ABC appointments and term adjustment.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Under our letter of support, we will turn it over to Natalie Corman. Good morning, Natalie.
Good morning. On behalf of Center Safe, they reached out to Margaret and myself requesting that this letter be completed, which is a certificate for local government approval. So Center Safe is under their Pennsylvania Coalition Against Domestic Violence applying for DCED Emergency Solution Grants funding. And that funding will be distributed through their coalition for rapid rehousing services within, and Center County being one of those counties that will receive that funding. And so since DCED funding is allowable to county governments to apply for, and which we have applied for, this is DCED's ways of having the county acknowledge that they support this application. And so they approve the activities proposed by Center Safe, which is to do rapid rehousing with this funding. And so Center Safe was asking for that support to be able to be a part of the application.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. Any questions on this item for CenterSafe? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the certification for Center Safe.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 The motion is carried. Okay, thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no liquid fuels or fee for local use conversation today. We do not have an administrator's report. Under discussion items, I just wanted to add something very briefly regarding the American Rescue Plan. We are in the final days, if not hours, of seeing the passage of it. And this would, I think, just from my standpoint, and I think for the county as well, that we would be in a really good position to see this pass, not just for county government itself, in terms of an allocation we would receive, estimated at about $31 million. For county use, we're still not sure what the guidelines will look like. That's still being finalized and developed, and we'll await word from the U.S. Treasury. But also we would see additional rental relief coming that we could use to augment the $700,000 we had administered last year, the $10 million that we're currently administering now that applications opened yesterday. We already know we have many dozens of applications that have come in for that. In addition, it would support small businesses. There's actually money specifically for restaurants in that the bill as well, that would complement the CHIRP initiative that's going on currently, but also it would be putting a conservative estimate would be in one fell swoop over $100 million right into the pockets of Center County residents through direct stimulus checks. And that kind of buying power and purchasing power would be fantastic for our small businesses here, and also for individuals who need to be making payments and other things. But that purchasing power would be one of the greatest purchasing powers we've seen recently be able to come here. So just in terms of, I think, just advocating and hoping that this final version passes, is looking like it will. But I just want to say on the record, advocating for our Congress members, Representative Thompson, Representative Keller, to support it, also Senator Casey and Senator Toomey as well. But it would be a fantastic thing for the county to receive support for, not just county government, but also our residents. So I didn't want to pass up the opportunity, because most likely the final vote will be happening before our next meeting on Thursday. And so I just wanted to make some brief comments on that. But does anybody else wanted to make any comments on anything before we go into our check run?
I think you covered it pretty thoroughly, Mike, but yes, we would urge our federal legislators to support the American Recovery Act. It will do a lot of good, not just for local municipalities, for counties, for states, for small businesses. It allows another rental program for us to potentially put in place after the emergency rental program we're just starting up here in the next few days. So yeah, strongly urge our federal legislators to support the program.
My only concern would be that there is a large amount of money that really isn't COVID and crisis related, that it's just pork in the thing. So as generations ahead of us have to pay those bills, I'm just mindful that however that money is spent, we need to spend it wisely and to the best of our ability to get as much value as possible.
Thank you, Commissioner. Certainly appreciate that. Okay. All right. So moving on to check run, Commissioner Higgins, we will turn to Commissioner Higgins made
$470.53. The check of the week is to AMI Expeditionary Healthcare for $266,226.91. I'm pretty sure that's to cover the prior month's worth of COVID testing at the old Comcast site near the mall. And I believe they're going to continue doing the free, no appointment COVID testing until just about the end of the month. Just want to remind Center County citizens that it's there and that we were the first county in the state to offer that to our citizens using CARES Act dollars, and that we continue to do that through the end of the month. So would like to make the motion to approve the check run dated March 5th.
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the check run. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Okay. Heading into our voter registration report, we'll turn it over to Commissioner Dershowitz.
All right, we have 105,171 registered voters in Center County this morning. That's up 3 voters from last report. The roll looks like we have 44,124 Democratic registrants, 139 Green Party, 691 Libertarian, 13,957 no affiliation, 42,373 Republican, which leaves all others at 3,887 voters. Of that all other category, I'd like to focus on the Campbell Party this morning that has 1 registrant in Center County. All right, then I'd like to highlight precinct number 14, Snowshoe Borough, that they vote at the Fire Hall on Railroad Street in Snowshoe. And in the last election, there were total registered voters of 455, ballots cast 392, and that leaves a percentage turnout of 86.15%, which is very high. And I want to thank everyone for turning out at that level. The folks that make it happen in precinct 14, Denise Sorovic is the judge of elections. Jamie Roush is the minority inspector. Deborah Shaw is the majority inspector, and the clerks are Lydia McCloskey and Mary Ann Raymond. So thank you for doing such a great job in helping us out, and I look forward to again using you this spring. So, all right, so that's my report for this morning.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. We're going to then just make an announcement that
Like, looks like you froze. Maybe it's at my end.
Oh, he's frozen.
Am I frozen?
Yeah,
currently?
it's froze.
Okay. Can anybody hear me still? No?
Yeah, you're fine now. You just froze.
Oh,
you're back.
The last 2 sentences.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So we just wanted to note that 2 weeks from today, our board meeting is canceled due to the virtual County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania conference. So we will meet next week on the 16th, but not on the 23rd. At this time, any executive sessions to report, Margaret?
No executive sessions to report.
Okay. Thank you. And then any questions from the press before we look to adjourn? I just want to make sure I'm not frozen now. Just no questions from the press. Okay. All right. Hearing none, we will then look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 11:12.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Thank you all. Have a great day.